Hello, Zimbabweans. I think it is quite necessary from time to time for me to come again and try to share my perception on certain matters regarding our nation. Well, I like my nation and Zimbabwe. It is a good nation, but so many people are in pain even right now as I'm talking. Especially the fear that the economy is crumbling down. There are many factors that are affecting, obviously, our economy, but most importantly is the political situation. It is one such phenomenon that has been working against our economy. There's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of tearing apart of situations. So, as a nation, we are remaining stagnant on one point, and we are actually struggling uh, to make ends meet, to ensure that our nation progresses. So right now, I want to share quickly on matters that are happening now regarding the price increases that we are currently seeing, and most people are being affected, and they are so much afraid of their future. And we have seen some ridiculous price increases. Yes, there's nothing actually wrong about it because the business community is afraid of losing what they have been building. You know, someone who is in business in Zimbabwe knows that for the past almost 20 years, it is always about building, trying to build something, then all of a sudden, because of political instability, what we have been building for years, it crumbles down and we start building again. And I think the business community was quite ignorant. I think at this time we don't only need to respond in terms of probably saying we increase prices, but we need a more invigorating process of engaging the government and even holding the government to be responsible of the certain changes that they are causing without consulting us. This is a challenge even to the current sitting president that if as long as you try to resolve the issues of governance in Zimbabwe, the political situation of Zimbabwe by hiring some people that you think they are going to resolve the issue without engagement, then we are always going to have a problem with that. We cannot just be held at ransom as business people by some people who are just hired for certain to play a certain role. We know that Gideon Gono K was hired by Robert Mugabe to try and resolve certain economic issues, of which he failed. And now we are seeing this current finance minister being also recruited by Mnangagwa to try and to be hired. He was actually hired to try and solve the economic matrix that is a problem at the moment. And obviously, I can tell you that he will fail, even if any other person will be called in, maybe even BT himself, who is even very vocal about the economic matters. If he is hired to try and quench a certain, economic crisis as a hired man, we foresee doom in all that doing. What is important is the spirit of engagement. You cannot run an economy which is populated by so many entrepreneurs and never come at a point when you engage those entrepreneurs on the table and try to discuss them the way forward. There is absolute disengagement. There is no working together in our country. I want to tell you that the political scenario in this age is different. It's changing in actual fact. We are seeing that now governance is shifting from a centralized position to a co-shared phenomena. The people, the government and the people should work hand in hand to try and solve economic matters. I think even the MDC will quite hear me well on this one, because they are also having a problem of trying to bring up someone that they say is going to be the remedy or the panacea to certain economic ailment. It doesn't work that way. It is through engagement. All people must be involved in building a nation. As long as certain individuals feel that they are more important in solving the paradox of economic issues, then we will have a problem. An economy needs participation of all various stakeholders. It requires a moment when people can gather together and hold seminars and try to find a solution together, that once they agree on that solution, they work together to make sure that the written codes will be implemented. That is very key. But what we are seeing now is that certain individuals are being called to try and become sort of the solvers or the messiahs of certain matters. It won't happen that way. You should remember that population growth in itself is a very big issue. Even in America, it is becoming a very big issue. So when the population growth is now soaring, it is becoming bigger and bigger, then obviously economic matters should not be centralized on a certain few people. No, it needs a robust approach. It requires all people to come together. It is now a moment when we should develop a system of governance whereby the majority of the people will have a stake, we have a share on it. We have to speak about how the economy ought to be run. It's now about unity. It's now about having all your forces coming together and try to formulate a very unique process or a unique formula whereby you have to decide how an economy should be run and how you might altogether eliminate corruption. That is key. But as long as we are having pulling and tearing apart, then we will not have anything happen. I'm sorry to tell you that even if there is going to be a government change in Zimbabwe, your anticipations are too high, but I'm sorry to tell you that in a few moments you will rejoice, but later on you begin to cry again, because as long as a system of governance is not changed, when people feel that they are more important in the paradox of solving the economic equation, then we are having it wrong there. It should be reached a consensus by all stakeholders when they will have an input into the whole process. And when there is a consensus between the ordinary citizens, the entrepreneurs, and the government, when people are having one voice, that's how an economy should be run, and that's how people will feel that we are part and parcel. Now, as it stands, there is a gap. The government is taking its own direction, and the people are the entrepreneurs are taking on their direction. And the moment you try to force the entrepreneurs, then there will be shortages, there will be wailing and cheering, a part of all that we have been trying to build. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you now that now is the time for the people to be united. It's time for the people to have one voice. It's time for the people to put their political differences aside. It's time for the people to pioneer a system of governance that they want. How should the government work? How should things move from one stage to the other? How should corruption be eliminated? It should not be the government to decide that. It should be the people who should be at the epicenter of making decisions and trying to close in every loophole that might lead to corruption. You know, with politicians are good at talking. They say we want to bring a non-corruption system, but actually behind the doors there will be knowing loopholes in that system, or where they can manipulate it and find a way of enriching themselves. Every politician is good at that. So we must be careful in how we approach issues of governance. I want you to be very vigorous and to understand now is the time for the people to push the government. They have to push the government to be very realistic, to engage the people, to engage the entrepreneurs, to engage the private sector, and try to resolve issues together. It's not about individuals. An economy is not about individuals. I have to reiterate this statement. It is about a people together. That's how an economy can be built. Your participation, my participation, that other person's participation and contribution towards the one global unique structure is what will redeem a nation. Our nation needs that, co-shared phenomenal principle if we are to go to some better level. Because today we are fighting ZANU-PF, tomorrow they can be MDC, and tomorrow we might be found fighting also MDC. If we don't work head on and tell ourselves as individuals and as a nation that for us to have a unique governance, we need to create it ourselves as a people. It shouldn't be the politicians who should create it, but the people should sit down and draft a document of how they think if the government operate in this way, then we can have a better Zimbabwe. Ladies and gentlemen, I won't say a lot. This is Pepukai Pekete, the scribe. You can Google Pepukai Pekete. Even on YouTube, you can find Pepukai Pekete, and you can also get access to my clips, and you can go on Facebook, Pepukai Pekete, or on my Facebook page. You can also type People's Power Revolution, People's Power Revolution. You can go on that Facebook page and we can share. And many other platforms. On Twitter, you can also type Pepukai Pekete, my Twitter handle Pepukai Pekete, or at Talk Rights, you can get access to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste time. Let's engage the government. Let's tell the government that we are tired of having hired personalities to try to solve our economic equation. We are part of it, and we know the solution. Don't be pushed aside, and don't just take yourself as a non-important, item in this whole paradox. You are important, I am important. Let's put our hands together and work out our nation. It's not about politics. Politics will delay us, because once we pursue only politics without trying to look into the matters that are also directly affecting us, we won't go anywhere, because politicians are always after power. But policy change, it belongs to us. We might not achieve a political change agenda, but what I can tell you is that we can produce an economic policy framework and push politicians to adopt it. That much I tell you, we can do that. We can do that, because what I don't want to see is to hear your children crying, is to hear mothers and fathers crying and agonizing in the dungeon of doom because of pain. No, that is not what is important. There are children who are there who are sleeping with hunger, who are hungry. No, we can't just go like that. There are women who are screaming there, who are even at the extent of going outside their marital status and hunting for some man to quench their economic situation, which is now haphazard. We can't just do that. We are a nation which is principled. We are a people who are principled. We know our culture. We just can't let prostitution override us. There are a lot of girls out there, because of economic hardships, they are giving in. Women who are strong, they are giving in to man because they don't have money. No, we can't just. The economy is getting worse. We can't just let it go that way. We can't. Let's rise up. Let's speak to the government. Let's engage them. This is Pep Kaitegete Describe. I will always update you. Thank you. Peace and blessings.